Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our town hall meeting. We'll give everybody a moment to come in and then we'll get started shortly.
Good evening.
And we're so glad that you've joined us today for this experience, this town hall of our youth and parents, or rather of our parents coming together to understand how we navigate this strange water that we're dealing with in the coronavirus environment. And I just am so delighted that each of you is taking the time out to be a part of this experience. And I really believe it's going to be a blessing. Our minister who works with our youth department is Minister Antoine Garrett. And Antoine is on with us tonight, and he's going to guide us in the conversation and introduce the panelists that are here. And I think we want you to really go in the chat room, introduce yourself, let everybody know you're here. And also to get ready to ask questions. There's a place for you to ask your questions, a Q&A at the bottom. Be sure to raise your questions and we'll be trying to answer them as we go along. So let me throw it to Minister Antoine Garrett.
Thank you, Bishop, for the introduction. Appreciate it. Welcome everybody to our town hall for parents of middle school and high school students. Especially dealing with this challenging time, doing the best we can to figure out how to cope. And so our panelists this evening, I'm going to give them each an opportunity to introduce themselves. I'll start with Sister Angela Smith, and she can introduce the other two, and then we'll keep the conversation going.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Sister Angela Smith. I am on the staff at New Psalmist. I function as the pastoral counselor and over other ministries of the church. Tonight, I know that we will be sharing with you information that hopefully will assist you during this time. Joining us tonight is Dr. Jacqueline Fulton, and I'm going to allow Dr. Jackie to give us a very brief introduction.
Hi, I'm a pediatrician in Baltimore, Maryland, practicing in the inner city, a native Baltimorean. Went to Western, University of Morgan State, and University of Maryland. I practice in the Pennsylvania Avenue, University of Maryland area.
Sister Courtney Jacobs.
Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney Jacobs. I have a master's in human services, concentration in family counseling, and a second master's in education school counseling. So I'm a high school counselor, and I'm also a certified counselor.
And Ms. Rosaria Best.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Rosaria Bass. I'm a licensed clinical marriage and family therapist. I work primarily with child and adolescent kids, and I also work under Sister Angela in the pastoral counseling ministry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Angie. So we have this incredible panelist assembled tonight for our conversation. And so, you know, it goes without saying that we're all trying our best to figure out how to manage the time that we have, whether it comes to online learning, essential workers and parenting, cabin fever, activities to keep the family going, managing meal times, dealing with the grocery budget, all of those kinds of things are impacting us all. But I wanted to start tonight just kind of throwing out a general question for our panelists. And if you could, each of you may have a different answer, but what would you say is the number one thing that parents of middle school and high school students should be concerned about right now? I'll start with Dr. Fulton.
Okay. I think sticking to a routine and making sure they don't become couch potatoes. They still need to have a routine about the day, get up, do the schoolwork, exercise, get outside, that sort of thing. So I think the biggest thing is just to, since they've been home so long, is to make sure they still have some sort of a routine.
Courtney?
I would say checking emotions. So making sure that your student is able to handle what's going on. This is the first time that they may be experiencing going to school online. It could be the first time that they're away from their friends and their teachers for this long. So you want to check in with your student just to see how they're handling this whole process, and also practice healthy habits. So whether that's starting to exercise, mindfulness, or even starting doing like yoga, and you can find all of those on the internet.
Got it. Thank you. Rosaria?
Definitely, as everyone said, it's kind of finding that balance, creating this what this temporary new schedule look like. What are they going to look like? Because they need that structure to feel safe and to know what you expect of them. Because they're used to the expectation of school, teachers telling them this is what the day is going to look like. So as parents, trying to create that, I expect you to get up in the morning, do your schoolwork, then help out with chores at home, and then having that social piece, whether or not it's interacting with their friends via internet or family time. So creating that balance so they know what the day is and what you expect of them.
Well, let me go back to the schedule that all of you kind of touched on at different places. How important is it? I know most school districts have implemented some sort of distance learning or virtual learning. And for those that haven't, they may have given their students some sort of homework packet or something that they should be working on. Talk a little bit more, if you can, specifically about how parents can manage that schedule, right? Because I know for us, at least in our household, and we have all three of our children in the house right now. I have 2 college students and a middle school and an 8th grader in the house. And so managing the schedule gets a little bit tricky because, while they have that virtual learning, each of my kids has a little bit of a different flow. Some may have, actual classes, but others may just have this period of time during the day, and then the rest of the day is kind of on their own. So what can parents, do as it relates to scheduling the day? I'll start with Courtney on this one.
I would say set an expectation. So when it comes to scheduling, just like when you're in school, you have expectations. So once you're finished with your work, okay, now it's time to either have some type of mindfulness time, or to work on SAT or work on ACT, or go on to Naviance and see what tasks you have in Naviance that you can complete. Because just because they're finished with their packet work or their online learning, there's always things to do in Naviance. So if they're a junior, they can start working on their resume or looking up colleges or universities. A lot of schools are doing virtual tours, and they're also the ACT, they just opened up a practice test that you can do, so you can register for that. So there's always different tools that you can look at, and Naviance is amazing to start with. So you can set that expectation that when you're finished with your schoolwork, you're going to go on to Naviance or Khan Academy to build your skills up even more.
Got it. Rosario, talk a little bit about that scheduling process or what we can do, especially for the younger students.
So what parents can do is you could either do that the night before or in the morning. A lot of schools are sending all the work at once. So you can say, hey, today I need you to do this lesson plan, these 2 topics today. So break it down so they know your expectation of, and then want at least these 2 works package done before the week. So you kind of spread the work out feeling like I'll get to it on Thursday and Friday and everyone is freaking out because nothing is done. So if it's 6 assignments, break it down throughout the week so it's more manageable. So then also a lot of the packages are more, academics of, the math and reading, but it's also the science and the art, they need that as well. So some of the resources on New Psalmists have those so that they have a balance, because they may not have that to realize, yes, it's academic, but also we have fun, which goes back into what Courtney was saying, the mindfulness. So have that well-rounded education for the day, but creating that schedule at night or in the morning of this is what I expect you to achieve today.
Okay.
Can I just jump in here to also say that it would be helpful if in fact the family, whatever that unit is, talks about what's on each other's plate so that there can be some coordination of efforts. Because the reality is almost every day brings something new.
Yeah.
And so there has to be some flexibility that, what we did yesterday, something may come up that might make that different tomorrow. So again, agreeing that perhaps at the end of the day, we talk about how, things went today, but tomorrow we may need to do X, Y, or Z, and making sure that there is that flexibility that we lay out as available to everyone. While we do want to have a schedule, we know that things are flowing so differently. We want to make sure that we allow that to happen, but we're also communicating that to everyone.
Absolutely.
I think we also have to have some flexibility in the sense that all kids don't learn the same. Parents are kind of pulling their hair out because they aren't teachers. And so you have some children who have ADHD and some other learning issues. So they may not be able to sit for 3 or 4 hours and do lessons. So you may have to negotiate with the child. Maybe you do an hour and a half and then they take a break and then go back to it. So I think you need to know your child. So you may have 3 children in the house, but there may be one that doesn't learn the same as the other. So you do need to modify the schedule based off of the child's learning situation.
Bishop, I think you wanted to jump in, then I'm gonna come back to you, Dr. Fulton, because I have another question about scheduling. Go ahead, Bishop.
I want to jump in right behind Jackie there. Remember, your homeschool child is no different from your home child. Children are hardwired certain ways. If a child doesn't do work when you ask them to do work, in the sense of you say, well, you clean up your room. They say, okay. And 5 minutes before it's supposed to be done, they get started. Then it'll be the same way when it comes to schoolwork, because they are hardwired differently. All children are not hardwired to do a task as soon as they're given it. Just like adults aren't all hardwired to do tasks as soon as they're given them. And so you have to be mindful. If you want a task done at a certain time, put a time that you want it done. Don't leave open-ended times. Get it done when you can, because some children are hardwired, not some. Every child is hardwired differently, and they accomplish things differently, so that your homeschool child will be no different from your home child.
Wow, that definitely gives me something to think about with my own kids. Dr. Fulton, I want to pivot back to you for a second about schedule and the physical implications of maintaining that schedule on on children, on parents, because right there is no getting up at 8 a.m. It may not be the same for everybody. Their daytime schedules off, so they might want to stay up a lot later, you know, and if while they're getting that work done, like Bishop said, and they're getting it done during the day, but hey, maybe I don't have to have a bedtime. What about that aspect of scheduling, Dr. Fulton? Is that important for parents to still maintain even in the midst of all of this?
I think it is for a couple of reasons, one of which is we don't know when the kids are going back to school. If they do go back to school in June and they've been hanging out like it's summertime, they're going to have problems. So I think they do need to have a schedule. And I don't know who had mentioned about getting it straight the night before, but there needs to be a limit to their screen time. So there may be a time when it's phones in parents' room kind of thing, so that you can ensure that they get up in the morning. But I agree with Bishop that each child's different. If you have an 11-year-old and a 17-year-old, they're different.
Mm.
An 11-year-old probably needs more sleep than the 17-year-old does. So, and you need to look at what was their routine before they were home. So to all of a sudden want them to go to bed because they're driving you crazy, but they used to stay up till 10 o'clock, is not fair. So you have to play it by ear. Each kid's different. Each family's different. I don't think you can make any hard, fast rules. We know our kids. Basically, you know which kids are going to go to bed at 10 o'clock and which ones are going to stay up till 2 a.m. because they've been doing it. So I think it's probably not a good time to change things. Mm-hmm. So if you have a kid who's been up till 2 a.m. during the school day, the school year, to try to make them go to bed at 9:30, it's not going to happen. So you have a battle on your hands. So it's amazing to me the number of parents who are on Facebook complaining about their kids. I just have to say that because my age, it's just amazing to me. I come from a generation where you went to school, you came home, you did your chores, you went to bed, you didn't have all the distractions. And so I found that a lot of my parents send their kids to school to get a break. Mm. Okay. And so you don't have that break anymore. So it causes battles. Yeah. It causes battles in the home. You also have teenagers who are used to hanging out. So you have to know your kids. I mean, you have kids who never had to be in the house before 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. So now they have to be in. So what are they going to do now that they're in? So you have to set some boundaries, but you also need to know that you need to know your kid, and you need to know that some things are going to have to be gradual. You just can't change everything all at one time because now everybody has to be in the house together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that. I want to pivot the conversation a little bit because we're touching on the educational portion of it, a lot of it as we're talking about schedule. And so for Courtney and Rosaria, and obviously any of the panelists can jump in, what kind of supports or what kind of efforts could parents be engaging in right now to support their child who's doing this online learning, in addition to scheduling, right? Because scheduling is one aspect of it. But I know for me, we always laugh and joke about this new math, right? If mom and dad or grandma's at home and they're trying to support their youngster with the work that's being provided or that's available, you know, through their laptop, how can parents support them in those efforts? I'll start with Rosaria.
I think it's also support. It's like, especially with that new math, a lot of parents may not know, but also reaching out to your other parents. Because the point is, that's why you're using your support team to help you get through it. If you don't know and you're looking over the work, like, it's okay to tell a child, we'll come back to this. And reach out to your support team of, hey, they're doing the same math in second grade. What are they doing? I'm not understanding. So utilize your support team, whether or not your church members, your coworkers, whoever may be able to help you with that, even older siblings, to kind of help you through that, to help support the child as well. So I think best thing is utilizing support teams.
So Courtney, in thinking about support teams, are there school staff available now that can help the parents when it comes to that? Can you talk to that a little bit?
Sure. So you can reach out to your student's teacher. So in my district, we have Google Meet times. So fortunately, every student in my district has a device that they use. So you can either contact your teacher on Schoology or during the Google Meet time. So every school has a schedule where your teacher will be available during their office hours. Definitely reach out to the school counselors because we are here to help, and we're the liaison between the student, the parent, and the teacher and social workers. So we have an array of staff members that can help you if you find yourself being stressed about helping your student with the work. So don't be afraid to reach out to the teachers. They are definitely available to help and to explain the work. Or if you want to try to figure it out, you can go to Khan Academy and you could type in whatever say you're doing math, the equation, and they can break it down to you. Or you can also go to YouTube. They have great pages where they can break down the math to you as well. So there's different resources that you can use if you find yourself starting to get frustrated trying to help.
Got it. Thank you.
So in our chat room, Reverend Darius, who's one of our ministers, but also an assistant principal, is reminding us to definitely check in with the support staff, particularly if your child has an IEP. Check in with a counselor to get support to keep abreast of those children, those students who have those kinds of special needs.
Got it. Go ahead, Bishop.
I think also one of the things we take for granted, the children have come home from a classroom experience. Joshua, I think we can do a show of hands. Can we see by a show of hands from people in the room, how many people are working at home? Can we get an idea of that, Joshua? Let's see if we can get an idea of how many people.
I'll have it up in 1 second.
The reason I raise that is because many of us who are working at home, after about 2 weeks of it, it has driven us crazy. And part of the reason for that is we're working all over the house. We're working in the living room. We're working in the dining room. We're working in the kitchen. We're working in the bedroom. We're working in the basement. I think, right now I'm going to work here. And when you do that, you're working in space that has some other purpose. And so you're looking around at all the work you have to do in the house. If you're working in the kitchen, you see dishes. If you're working near the laundry room, you see clothes that need to be washed. So all of this begins to work on you. We don't take into account sometimes that children have been in a physical environment called a school, and now they are at home. So we should work on creating a space at home where schoolwork is done. Not all over the house, not in the bedroom, not in the living room, not in the family room, not in the kitchen, unless that is the one place that it's done, so that we can begin to have them think in their mind, this is where I go to school. Otherwise, the same distractions that hit us in global working all over the house will hit them. And I think that will help them learn better if we do some kind of environmental transition for them, so that they are learning in a space they call my learning space.
Bishop, just for frame of reference, 93% of our attendees are working from home.
Wow.
And so that gives us a good frame of reference of how many persons, and even one of our attendees mentioned that they are a parent and an educator. And so not only are they working to educate other kids, their child is home as well.
Right. And when you have different locations for the child, you have different distractions for the child. if you put them in one learning space. If we think we're going to go into next semester, when I say next semester, this fall like this, if parents can afford, they ought to buy for younger children. And so I don't know what grade we would cap this at, but a desk and chair. A desk and chair. This is where I go to school. So that we begin to orient them toward a learning space, so learning can take place better in that space.
Bishop, I would even add with that, one of the comments that we've been receiving a lot from parents is that, especially those who have multiple children, is then each child needs their own electronic device, whether it's a tablet or a laptop. And so I would encourage those, right along the line what Bishop said, using, purchasing a desk, to look into a low cost, whether it's Chromebook or a tablet, so that children can have their own device so that they don't have to share. And while one is using, or while a parent is working, the child's not able to do their schoolwork or to use some of those resources that the panel has identified that can be helpful.
Can you do a poll on this to find out roughly how many parents are struggling with the need for multiple devices in their home and they don't have them?
Yes, I'll do that question in 1 second.
And also going off of what Bishop was saying with distractions, you have to make sure you have clear expectations of, hey, we're not playing with dollies, we're not playing with toys. It's just in school, you're not allowed to have these things. We're not going to have those things in our environment unless if you need breaks, like Dr. Jackie was saying, then yes, after a break, you could allow to utilize this for 15 or 20 minutes and then get back, because some kids utilize that as part of their IEP. So making sure you have those clear, what is allowed and what is not allowed. If bedrooms are off limit during the school hours, there's off limits. If certain parts are off limits, you want to make sure that's clear so you don't have all those type of, I'll get back to it, and then kind of go different with distractions.
So one of the things, I know Reverend Josh is working on the poll that we're going to take about the devices. I've heard the word mentioned several times, and that's stress. And stress is something that we all are dealing with, right? We're all dealing with a traumatic experience. Our economy as we know it, our lifestyle as we know it, has come to a screeching halt. For many of us, we know someone or know someone who knows someone who's been impacted by all of this, and our kids are watching the news, and we're trying to limit them from watching the news. But either way, there's stress that's being felt on a lot of different levels. The parents that are participating in this or that will watch this, they're under stress. Their students, they're under stress. The grandparents are doing their best to raise their youngster, they're under stress. The person who lives in a small space who doesn't have, a 3-wing mansion to say, okay, you go over here and do this, or everybody's in the same space all the time, all day. This is new. Parents who are, seeing each other all the time, this is brand new. So, there's some stresses that we will, that we need to address and talk about. I see the poll is there for those of you who are able to respond to those device questions. For your family, please go ahead and submit your answers so we can have a better idea of the population and what the needs are. That would be fantastic. So as everybody's completing their poll, I do want to talk about stress and how parents can manage stress and how they can help their young person not only manage stress, but be aware of their stress levels and the emotions that they may feel as we deal with this. So I'll start with Courtney talking about how we can manage or be aware of that emotional level, that emotional stress that each person is under. And then we can talk a little bit to Rosaria and even Dr. Jackie on how we can help manage the stress and cope with some of the stresses that we're all feeling right now. Courtney, you can go first, please.
Sure. So some signs you can look for behavior changes, such as like clinginess, anxiety, sadness, or even anger. And you want to, I go by the 3 R's. reassurance, routine, and regulation. So for reassurance, children want to feel safe. They want to know they're safe. They want to know their loved ones are safe. Maintaining routines with sleeping, eating, learning, and playing, and regulation, so which support. So you're helping them manage their different emotions. You're helping them with deep breathing, with movement, with maybe having some quiet time. And you also want to listen. So you want to make sure that you're listening to your student and listen to understand and not listen to respond to them. That's really important because during this time, they're having feelings that they might not have had before. So you want to take that time out and listen to them, but also share how you're feeling during this time as well.
Okay. Okay. That's real good. The 3 R's: reassurance, regulation, and routine. Was that it?
Reassurance, routines, and regulation.
Reassurance, routines, regulations. Good stuff. Rosaria, what would you say, or what would you add to that as it relates to managing stress or being aware of stress or even the emotions associated with all that we're seeing?
Well, first that comes off even with parents, kind of, because the kids are going to mimic what you are doing. So you got to figure out, kind of how you handle and expressing your stress is how they're going to respond as well, because it's new to everyone. So that's why I'm saying a lot of self-care. I know our time is very limited with everyone, but the point is, if you're taking, 15 to half an hour, it's like this, hey, self-care time. Everyone going to do, whether or not we're going to sit and read a book, a scripture, or play a puzzle. You need to able to de-stress, because the parents, if you're in a right state of mind, you're able to parent better. But if you're stressed out, the kid is going to pick up on that stress, and everybody's stressed in the house at the same time. So to help the kid realize, like, hey, mom need a 15-minute break. So the kid be able to express us, I need a 10-minute break because I'm feeling X, Y, and Z. So try to mimic that, so that also that you understand and gauge where they're going, and they will realize, I need a moment because I'm human and I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling upset. So they can understand, okay, let's not bug mom or dad or grandma or whoever, my caretaker right now, because they need a moment. So that could help, a way to start to help decreasing stress, but also trying to come up with a self-care, what that looks like. Is it music that we take up time to put on a little music, we play together, we need self-care just to help us keep our stress level down. Whatever that is, you need to, if you don't have one, come up one, explore one. But also you could do that together as a family unit. Hey, we have a family playlist, or we doing, we put our favorite songs so that we bring the stress level down, house down, everybody's laughing. So just come up with different things together, and also individually, to help manage our stress.
Dr. Jackie, and then Bishop, and then Miss Angie, as it relates to stress.
As a physician, I know that we're starting to see an increase in child abuse and domestic abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So those are stressors for children. If that is occurring, parents need to reach out. There are mental health providers, there's telehealth. There are agencies that if you call your pediatrician, they can help guide you to get help in those circumstances. We also have the age group here that are missing things like prom. Some of them are getting ready to miss graduation. Some of them have lost their jobs even as adolescents because they can't get to work. The bus lines don't get them there. So there are a lot of other stressors other than just their education. Their parents are home, and the parents and the children are not used to being in the same space for very long. So I think that other than reaching out to the teachers and educators, that you need to reach out to your pediatrician, to your church, and even get online. There are other agencies. Baltimore City Health Department has an excellent website with resources. I know the church has that also. I look to see some of the resources that were attached to this video. But the child abuse and domestic abuse needs to really be addressed, and you need to reach out because folks are suffering. Some folks have been able to be put up in hotels if they can't be with folks because they're being abused. You may have to call Department of Social Services if you can't tolerate your child. I mean, there are parents who ought not to be home with their kids, and you are. So reach out for help. It's available. And I think you do need to listen to your kids. You need to find out what are their concerns? I know I asked my grandson, who's 11, in preparation for this yesterday. He appeared to be sad, and I asked him, and he said that he misses his classmates.
Mm.
And I thought it was something else. So we do need to ask them, what are your stressors? Because that's something that can be remedied. I mean, they can get together through technology. So as a pediatrician, that's my concern, is that how many people are in an environment where there's not going to be any learning going on because there's violence in the home.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Thank you for that. Hey, Bishop, I heard Rosaria mention self-care. And while self-care is a term that many people are familiar with, others may know self-care and the actions that take place during that time is me time. So can you talk a little bit about ways or suggestions for parents and grandparents to manage that me time?
You know, I was reading one of the questions someone asked in the chat. The interesting thing about this is that we are being hit by a storm, a real storm. And many persons thought their world was together until the storm hit it. This is very reminiscent of the little children's story, Three Little Pigs. One house is built of straw, one is built of wood, and one is built of brick. And most of the houses that we've lived in before this hurricane hit, before this wind from the wolf hit, were made of straw. And we're trying to contend with the wolf in a house made of straw. I want to go back to something Rosaria said for self-care. One of the things you can really do for self-care is to build structures that support the wind that's coming against you. Not the wind that you're fussing about, you're arguing about, you're mad about, but the wind that's really coming. There's an interesting one in the chat where two parents are struggling with their two children and there's no me time. There's no adult time, as they would say. I would encourage everyone to actually define your day. If you're a couple, define what we will do on a day. What are our responsibilities? How will they look? And what is our time? You don't write the time with just all the children. That leads to the latter that Jackie has said, because all marriages or all relationships are not good. And this will just reveal a lot of them that have been bad.
Mm-hmm.
It will only show what's already there. The straw house will go down.
Mm-hmm.
The wood house will go down.
Mm-hmm.
The only one that will survive is the one that's built, as the Bible says, on a firm foundation, that's built with brick. And we have the opportunity to start putting some brick in this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would say to families, don't just keep winging it.
Right.
Set schedules. We will do this. This is my responsibility. This is yours. And say to the children, these are your responsibilities. These are ours. These are the norms on how we're going to do things through this. This is how decisions will be made going through this. It may sound crazy. It may sound structured. But what we need in a period like this is a structure that can withstand the pressures that are coming at it. And so we need to be structured. This is how decisions will be made. This is how we'll decide on things. These are your roles. These are my roles. And lay them out. Because once you begin to feel that you are doing your role and you are abiding by the norms, you feel included. And when you feel included, you feel safe.
Right.
Self-care has a lot to do with safe.
Absolutely. To just piggyback on some of what you're saying, Bishop, you know, these are different times, these are new times. And so sometimes we have to respond with new approaches.
Yes.
It may be new for some families to meet at the table and collectively come up with our rules of engagement.
Yes.
As you were suggesting, but not only come up with them, write them down post them on the refrigerator. For our teenagers, one of the things that they often complain about is, you're not listening to me. Nobody listens to me. So as we are coming up with these rules of engagement, recognizing that parents are parents and they have the final say, but give our young people an opportunity to give some input into how we're going to function as a family. For parents, it is important for you to have some time to yourself. So as you're negotiating and talking about, this is how we're going to function, be very clear, you know, if you're a single parent, to your young people, I need X number of time, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is. And during this time, I'm going to be taking my time out.
Yes.
And hold to that. Hold to that.
I have a friend who puts vacations on his calendar before he puts anything else. In a season like this, you must put your self-care on the calendar and not surrender it just because it looks like you need to.
Mm.
And it can be a shower. It can be a soaking in the tub. It can be watching TV, but this is some of our time, my time.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on something, both of you and Miss Angie and everyone as we're talking. One of the things that I know for us, our family engaged in when our kids first came home, and we were doing it relatively routinely, is we had took the advice of our children, our teenagers, and downloaded this social media app, TikTok, and we started making videos to manage our stress. And we would make these videos, whether they were questionnaires or dances, but we were doing it as a family unit. And I remember one time I had even said to Bishop, it's at the point now where we schedule it. And we schedule it because it was an opportunity for us to come together as a unit and to do something fun. It was an opportunity to do something creative. Granted, most folks only saw a 30-second video, but it took us who knows how long. It was usually my fault for messing up, but it would take us hours to get this 30-second video together, but we had so much fun making the videos. Right? And some folks might say, well, I'm not into all of that social media stuff. Well, maybe the social media isn't your thing. Maybe playing a game of Uno is, or maybe a game of Phase 10, or something that you can schedule for your family unit, whatever that looks like, where there's alone time, which is self-care and me time, but also a time for the unit to come together. If that's at all possible for those that are in your house, right? You're not necessarily talking about schoolwork. We're not talking about, did you get this packet done? We're doing something that allows us to just come together to create new memories in the midst of this. One thing that I think is important that we can't overlook, and it kind of shifts our conversation a little bit, is that my son said something to me when we went to get him from college. He was home for spring break when this shift occurred. So he never had a chance to go back. And Dr. Fulton, you mentioned it. He said, you know, we're living history. He said, you know, I'm a freshman in college. This will forever be etched in our minds. Mm-hmm. What about my friends that are high school seniors? Right. What about my youngest daughter who's an 8th grader? Right. They don't have the necessary endings that we're used to. Right, that have been tradition forever, right? So since we've been doing this in a structured society, so as we're having these conversations and as we're talking about how to manage, my encouragement is for families, whatever your family structure may look like, to have those difficult conversations, because your youngster, many of them are going through a thing that they can't just get over. This is the world as they know it has shifted, in major ways. And so I think it's important for us to just engage them in conversation. And Dr. Jackie brought it up, Bishop talked about it, but let's talk just for a second for those strategies to help parents who have to work with young people who won't have those necessary endings. Can we talk about that just a little bit? Dr. Jackie, you can start on that, and then I'll call out the other panelists.
Okay. I noticed that they had the virtual prom on TV. So I think that fortunately this generation has the internet, and we as parents have the internet where you can Google and see what ideas are out there that you can. It's not going to be the same, but at least you can come with some innovative, something to make this be a celebration for them. I noticed that some families are postponing things, and they're still going to occur, but they'll occur when all of this is over. So if you have a family event, no, they may not graduate, but you can still have a graduation celebration for them in July. And they can help you plan it. I think that we do need to see what are other folks doing to get through this, and just Google and see what are other folks doing to get through this. I noticed that one of the military academies had graduation, but the Naval Academy may not. But I noticed that the young man who was interviewed started crying. I mean,
Yeah.
he's military. He started crying because his family could not be there. So even though he has graduated and had a ceremony, his family wasn't there. So it still wasn't what he wanted. So I think that we can, you can approach the school and see if the school can do something when all of this is over. I mean, maybe the school can come back, and in the summer, the school can be open. There can be a graduation for the kids, an 8th grade. I don't know about the kids who are leaving high school because they'll be going to college and so forth.
So,
You know, along with that,
suggestion.
though, Antoine, there's so many different creative ways. You can, a child graduating from high school can get on with Zoom with, say, 5 or 6 of his real or her real close friends, and they can have an in context, what we call an in context graduation, where they graduate at home with all of their family members on Zoom, watching them in the outfit that they would wear or whatever, listening to them talk about their college experience, and they get to write their graduation experience. They get to write, because all of us graduate from high school know it's the most boring thing next to graduating from college. So they could get to write their own exciting graduation, put it on however they would want. They could create it. They can do it with their friends. A group of them can get together. But what it involves is parents listening to them and saying, why don't you take a shot, get with some of your friends, and you all start planning how you could do your graduation, since this is the reality. One of the things we cannot avoid is the truth of this situation. They will grow up into a world where they will have to learn how to pivot in midair. And this is the opportunity to begin to start teaching it. There is always Winston Churchill said, never waste a good crisis. And so we ought not waste this good crisis. There are some valuable lessons that we can help them to learn in the crisis.
Yeah.
And it involves us just sitting with them, asking questions for which they don't have answers.
Asking questions for which they don't have answers. You know, one of the things that can be challenging for parents, even as we're trying to figure this out and talking about, you know, necessary endings that won't occur. One thing that I don't want to overlook is the young person or the parent who's dealing with the young person who doesn't talk, right? Who doesn't open up, who doesn't share their feelings about all of this, who when you ask them, you know, how you doing with this? Oh, I'm fine. Or they don't say anything. You know, what do we say to that parent who's trying to get through to a youngster who, as we're even still talking about necessary endings, don't forget the ones who don't say anything. And so I would encourage that parent to find a medium, to find a manner where your child does communicate. They may not be a talker, but this may sound weird, and the experts on the panel might slap my hand for it, but maybe your child is a texter. And under normal circumstances, I wouldn't advocate you texting your child as your primary means of communication, but we're not in normal circumstances. And so I would say if your child is a texter and that works for them, this is the time to text them. What they you know, and some of the folks I might be educating, some I'm not, but hit them with the WYD. What you doing? And let them respond to that and engage them in their manner of communicating. Everything's not going to work for everyone. We're giving you some suggestions, some ideas, some thoughts. And one of those, as we're talking about necessary endings, and I appreciate what Bishop said, for the parents out here, and this is not necessarily related to your children as much as it is you. Like when we started this, we talked about the number of folks that know somebody that has lost a loved one in the midst of this changing time. Many of us are participating in ceremonies and structures virtually that we've never done before, where we were used to being able to go visit in the hospital, attend a funeral service, go to a viewing. Many of those things are happening online, and some of it's impacting your young person. It impacts you, so it does impact them. And so we want to be mindful of that as well, and finding ways to channel that. I'd encourage each of you to get a notebook, to keep to journal, to utilize the note section in your phone, to write down your thoughts at the end of the day. Just find a way, as we're dealing with these these changing ways that things are evolving for us on a regular basis, find ways to positively and therapeutically address your own feelings. Ms. Angie, I see you, go ahead.
Yes, so you keep bringing up the term, and a good one, necessary endings, and not being able to make that happen in the way that we traditionally have. The reality is all of us, parents and children, are experiencing multiple losses. Where it's not all related to the death of a loved one or a friend, but the reality is that there are some things that will never happen again the way they once did. Mm-hmm. And as they come about, we need to help our young people have conversations about that. But we must first have an awareness of that as parents ourselves, that for us, there are things that are not going to happen again, and be aware that we all need to grieve. And when we are struggling with that, to reach out for support of other family members, support of friends. How do we grieve? We grieve by helping to get out of us what is inside of us. We grieve by being able to talk about the things that are not what they used to be. As we talk about the things that our young people are going to be missing, everyone isn't going to be able to plan something later, but just to be able to talk about, you know what, you're not going to be able to go to your prom, but what can we do in the house? Or what kinds of things would you like to see happen? But to just totally not to talk about it, not to think about it, not to say anything about it, only compounds the problem.
Or to just say, well, you'll get over that. You'll get past that. That's an insult to grief. If I could just add this piece, most parents on this call are not high school or school administrators, nor are you guidance counselors. And Antoine said the great one, he said, you know, your child may not talk, and they may text, and they may not do either. And you're then saying, well, what do I do? You do what a parent does. When you can't be, you're not an educator. You're not a counselor. You're a parent. What does a parent do? A parent loves their child. You love them. You show them your love. It may not be the graduation they want or whatever, but at least you'll be you, and you'll be showing them who you are in their pain. You are trying to be loving. You're trying to be supportive. You're trying to be there for them. Parents, do not think you have to have all the answers. This is new territory. This is new territory. If all you had to be was a parent, that'd be fine. But now you've got to be a short order cook. You've got to be a cafeteria worker. You've got to be a teacher. You've got to be the family psychiatrist. You've got to be the doctor. You got a million roles you got to, and you only partially trained for one. That's being the parent. So when all else fails, ask God to make you the best parent you can be, the most loving, grace-filled parent you can be.
That's good stuff. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to what I've noticed on Facebook. People are basically all we talk about now is COVID. Even in our homes, so we need to make sure that that's not the number one topic. I mean, that is a negative, but as Bishop said, there are things that are positive that can come out of this. We can teach our kids how to cook. Okay, they can learn another language while they're home. I was looking and I said, you know, they can do a Black History Health Project. There are 4 Black scientists who are working on the COVID, and the vaccine and antibodies. So we can help our kids talk about COVID, but not in a negative way. And then maybe only turn the news on twice a day, you know, in the morning, in the evening, and be done with it, but not have CNN on all day long, or be talking to your friends all day long about COVID. We also need to be able to get out of the house. I noticed that a lot of my patients think they have to stay in the house. You don't have to stay in the house. If you have a yard, you can let the kids go out and rip and run and play. That gives you a break. They can go for a walk. 11, 12, 13, 14, they're old enough to go for a walk as long as they stay 6 feet apart, have their mask on, come back home, wash their hands. So I think that we need to not make our kids feel as though they're in a prison and we're in a prison with them. You can go out on the front porch, they can ride their bike. Staying home is not prison, and we need to make sure that we're not acting like it's a prison for us and for the kids.
I just want to mention about different ways for the kids who don't talk, using different modalities. If a kid is the music, hey, what song? Pick a song that express your mood. Hey, can you draw? Can you sketch? Can you use the phone, take a picture, do some photography to express what's going on and how you're feeling. So it doesn't always have to be verbal, but using your hobbies that the kid like or the strengths that they like to use as a way to communicate what's going on and how they want to talk. And then you could come back to say, okay, you drew this picture, what's going on? Or you picked a song, can you tell me why you picked this song? So use that as a way to bridge, able to talk about what's going on and how they want to express themselves.
That's good stuff, Rosario. Go ahead, Ms. Angie.
We are a Christian church. We are Christians. So I want to talk a little bit about setting a spiritual tone in your home. I think it's important that, we use this opportunity to put in place some rituals if we don't already have those. For example, we gather together in the morning to have prayer together before we start our teleworking, before we set our children off on their individual school paths. No, we're not asking you to be, over the head Bible thumping, preaching, throw down, praying, but just coming together for a morning devotional or ending the day with a family coming together for prayer. On the days that, on Sundays, gathering the family together so that we worship together at one of the Sunday services that we have. But again, we have the opportunity to do some things differently if they are not already in place, and setting a spiritual tone and putting in a spiritual temperature in our home, in our family culture, this is a great opportunity to make some of those kinds of shifts.
Yeah, Ms. Angie, that's good stuff. And I would add for those parents who may not be aware, in addition to the 3 services that New Psalmist has online on Sundays, on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook Live, we also have Zoom church for our children's group, as well as our youth group. And our youth group is ages 11 through our middle and high school students. So as Ms. Angie talks about setting that spiritual tone, one of the opportunities that is available is a youth service and children's service. You can get more information on that, obviously, if you go to the church's website, newpsalmist.org, to register your young person to participate in either one of those. But we meet each Sunday as well to continue engaging our young people in a spiritual manner, in a way that we keep them connected and engaged with the church, even though everything else is changing around them. So thanks, Ms. Angie, that's definitely a crucial component. Go ahead, Bishop, I see you.
And I add that to that sense of spirituality. Children will often make fun of, bristle, or whatever at their parents being prayers, and let's say we're gonna pray together and whatever. But children only dislike spiritual parents, or parents who evidence real spirituality under one condition. That is that their spirituality does not match up with their behavior. That's the only way children don't like spiritual parents. They love having parents who are spiritual when they are consistent in their behavior, which gives us, and what we don't realize is while all these children are home, we have a captive audience to share what spirituality looks like. Because they're constant, no matter how much they learn from the teacher, they learn so much more from their parents. Teachers change every year, every semester. Parents are the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. So as these parents are teaching these lessons of spirituality and making it and backing it up with their daily delivery of behavior, children begin to change. And let me take that word back. Children began to grow spiritually. They began to become affected by it because now they will ask spiritual questions. Right now, many of our children are just asking natural questions. But when they see the parents involving another source of power in their lives and their reality, they will begin to ask questions about that. And that will begin to also transform their lives. One of the things I would ask you to think about is what new memories are you creating? Are you intentionally trying to create so that when this is all over, there are memories that the children say, Mama prayed every day. Daddy read the scriptures. I saw him read them. They told us God will bring us through this. Memories that we are building, that we are putting in place, that are leaving, that are the seeds of growth in our children. Our children we should not waste a good crisis. We should get the butter out of the duck on this and really help our youngsters because they have an opportunity to see us 24/7.
Our children also need to see us making life better for someone else. There are things that we can do, even though we're at home, to make life better for others. You see people sewing masks. You see, I mean, what ideas can kids come up with where they can actually help folks? It may be that you take a list of seniors from the church and call them. And just so somebody's making contact with them, or one of the assisted living, just start calling, get a group of teenagers together and call folks on a regular. Miss so-and-so, every Wednesday, I'm going to call you at such and such a time. So I think they need to see us planning to make life better for someone else with their involvement.
You know, there's this phrase that says more is caught than is taught. So the more that our children see us modeling the things that we want them to do, the less talking and preaching we have to do.
Mhm.
Modeling the behavior that we want to see, or we're trying to help them create and grow into. We often talk about being the change we want to see. And so what I'm hearing everyone talk about is modeling that change in your own home. And the truth of the matter is, if you haven't done it up until this point, start today. Yes, you've been caught off guard, you've been reeling, you've been trying to get your footing, you've been trying to get your balance for the first few weeks of this whole thing. Start today. Don't say, well, I haven't done, that's all right. Start today. We've thrown out a lot of resources and ideas and activities. I encourage you, pick one, right? There's a lot that we threw at you. Pick one of the things that you heard tonight and start with that either tonight or tomorrow. Make a commitment that making the change in your home begins with you. If that means you need to journal and write some stuff down, if you need to process and come to grips with the changing reality that's in front of you, I encourage you to do that. Work on creating those new memories, and ask questions, right? You don't have to have all the answers. One of the best things you can do as a parent is to be honest with your child that you don't have all the answers. I don't know how long this is going to last. I don't know what it's going to look like when they open up outside again. But here's what we can try to find out. We can do this together. We can try to get some answers, right? We can ask questions and we can be okay with that. You know, that none of us, not every panelist on this discussion tonight has all the answers, but we're okay asking questions to try to get more information so that we can be more informed and make better decisions. And so as we're even doing this, Bishop, you all mentioned, you know, asking questions and not being afraid. I know we've seen some questions in the chat. I just wanted to remind the parents that are watching, who are on with us now in the Zoom session and on YouTube Live, that they can pose their questions if there are any questions for the panelists in the group chat. I wanted to make sure that I took this opportunity to do that. But I want to touch on one last piece, and that is cabin fever. Bishop, you mentioned it, right? We've all now, in varying stages and phases of this, have kind of been in this reality for several weeks, almost a month now for many of us. And for maybe the longest time we've spent in the house together in forever.
My walls have never seen me this much.
So just talk a little bit about each of the panelists, right? What are you doing to manage cabin fever? I'll start with Dr. Fulton, then I'll go to Rosaria, Courtney, and then I'll come back to Ms. Angie and Bishop. Dr. Fulton, what are you doing to manage the cabin fever?
Gardening, mainly gardening. And I know I'm not supposed to go out and get plants, but I put my mask on and go to Lowe's and Home Depot and get my plants and come back. My sister lives next door to me, so we stand out in the yard. She's a nurse. We're 6 to 12 feet apart, and we stand out there and talk for an hour. And I try to stay in touch with my grandkids and my daughters. But it's rough. It's rough not seeing folks and not being able to hug somebody. And I still go to work. Up until last week, I was going to work in the clinic every day, and now I'm doing telehealth, which is a little bit easier. I have no problem being in the house.
Rosaria, what do you do to manage cabin fever?
Well, I also have no problem in the house, but I've been, I have a child. I started building puzzles. I've been puzzles. I have done it in years. So I bought a puzzle, playing board games that I play with my family, but also I do a lot of craft things things I wanted to do, but never had the time to do it. I start actually working on some of those personal goals. I've taken like 15 minutes a day, like I'm going to work on this today. So that's what kind of keeping me up outside of traditional things to do, things that I've always wanted to do, but never seem to have the time to do.
Yeah. Courtney?
Well, I love to be outside because I'm an extrovert, so I don't really like being in the house, but I have been working out a lot more. I've taken to cooking my own meals because I used to eat out like every single day breakfast, lunch, and
Saving money. Okay.
but now I cook my meals every day. So I'm learning new recipes. I'm also journaling a lot more and doing mindfulness videos. I spend a lot of my days because I miss my students so much. So I try to figure out different ways I can connect to them. So we did like a video we sent out to them. I try to think of different activities that they can do. So I'm actually going to start making like a workout video that I can send to some of them that they can do to manage their own stress. We did a mindfulness video we sent out to students. So my department's really trying to get creative in that sense. So that's been keeping me busy.
Good stuff. Thank you. Miss Angie, what do you do?
I'm an outdoor person as well. So I try to, even some days when it's raining, I go outside, even if it's just standing on the front porch. I am blessed to have great neighbors. So we have across the yard conversations and just enjoy nature. My backyard is like a wildlife preserve. So, you know, I see every creature under the sun, the deer, the geese, even a fox, all kinds of things out there. And I have, much to Bishop's chagrin, I have been cooking cakes that he's not been able to get yet. And also sewing. So those are some things that I've been doing.
Awesome. Bishop, what about yourself?
Well, the cabin has closed in on me and done everything it can do as a cabin. I think I have walked every square inch of my house, and what I've done to maintain sanity is, first of all, I had to set up barriers so that I work in one space and live in others. I define breaks by going outside and go for a walk, or just sitting on the porch. I mean, my wife and I will actually go out and sit on the porch. Then I'm starting to write a new book, so I'm getting that, you know, mapped out and laid out. And I'm doing the one thing I love to do: watch television. I get great delight out of watching television.
I asked that question of each of the panelists, and so for me, managing my cabin fever, well, between the family and binge watching shows I've never heard of before,
Same here.
watching things I've never seen before. I'm doing some more writing myself, and taking to doing video verse of the day, utilizing my social media platform for a positive purpose. And so I do that now. But to those watching, and even to the panelists, the reason why I asked this question to all of us is because this will look different for every household that is watching this video. How you manage this time, how you manage this space will look different for each of you. And so I would encourage you to listen to what we shared this evening, reflect on it, but then decide what's best for you. Some of the things we talked about may work for your household, but then some of the things may not. Your family structure may not support some of the things that we talked about. You may not have a front porch to go and stand on, but you may open a window and stand and look out the window for a little while. So there, you know, so what you do will look different than everybody you've heard tonight. But the thing, and the key important thing, is to do something. Bishop, I'm gonna allow you to close us out in our conversation tonight, but I want you to do it from this perspective. Your Zoom screen says new mindset, new results. Can you close out our discussion for parents of high schoolers and middle schoolers with that in mind?
Some time ago, I was working on a presentation and I came across this phrase, new mindset, new results. And when we got quarantined and sheltered in place and we had to do all of this work, all the staff of New Psalmist is working triple time from home. They are working triple time.
Yes, we are.
That's right. That's right.
And one of the things I had to understand as leader was that we needed new results. And the only way to get new results was we had to have a new mindset. And that if we had a new mindset, we get new results. And that, I believe, is indicative of every family that's sharing with me today and sharing with us. Every person that's living through this reality, it's going to take a new mindset. We're going to have to change the way we think, even the way we think about God. God does not have to preserve what was. God is in the business of preserving us in whatever life presents us. And therefore, we have to have a new mindset. I remember once I learned that my God was too small. And I had to see my God for who he was. And when I did, I saw new results happening in my life. And I encourage every parent to have a new mindset about what this entails. This is not the worst thing in the world that could happen to you. Cheer up. Things could be worse. This is not the most difficult moment you will ever have with your children. One day they will be grown, and grown children have bigger issues than little children. Believe me. All kinds of things can happen. So understand what the scripture says. All things work together for them that love the Lord and who are called according to his purpose. So what do I need in this? If I wake up agitated, irritated by my children, I need a new mindset so I can have new results, so I can see the results I'm looking for. And I've got to believe God for them. My closing word would be to everyone on here. This is a surprise to you, but it is not a surprise to God. The God who created all knew this would hit your world and mine long before we ever saw it coming. But God has prepared a path. God has prepared a way for us, and we must take it. But it entails a new mindset, and we're going to see some new results.
Amen. Amen. Reverend Joshua, I will officially turn this back over to you to close us out. Again, thank you to everybody that participated on the panel, every parent that joined in. We are grateful for you sharing with us this evening. And Reverend Joshua, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Hands up, Josh, if it was helpful.
Yes, if you were helped tonight, if you could just click right on where you can raise your hand, let us know if this was beneficial to you. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can just let us know, send an emoji right into the live chat. Let us know if this helped you. And as we end today, if there are follow-up sessions that you would like to see or discussion topics that you would like for some members of our panel or some of the other groups in the church to tackle, you can send those right into the chat. We would love to hear from you. If you have other questions or ideas, you can also send those into us at the church via email. Send it right to amen@newpsalmist.org. That's AMEN@newpsalmist.org. But over the coming weeks and months, as we continue on this journey, Sister Angela and our pastoral care team, as well as our youth ministry, is going to be looking to put together more sessions to help parents to deal with issues as they come up, as well as put together some groups for our youth, as we do want to support them as well. And so Minister Antoine mentioned our youth church that takes place each Sunday at 10:45. If you have not received information on that, make sure you subscribe right to the New Psalmist mailing list. You can go right to the website, the members only section, and create an account. And as you fill out your profile, make sure you indicate that you are a parent of a child between 11 to 17 so that you're added right to that listserv and can get that information. But it's our goal to help to support parents as well as our youth as we continue through this session. So we'll leave the chat room open for a little bit. If you have any ideas or suggestions for things that you would like to discuss or groups you would like to see, please send them right on in there. And so Bishop, if you would close us in a word of prayer.
Okay, and thank you, Antoine, for such a marvelous job tonight. Father, in Jesus' name, we come on behalf of families, parents, and their children who are trying to find their way through this new reality, who are concerned and afraid that they may not be doing enough, that their sons and daughters may not be getting all they should be getting, and who are in some extent just worn out. So we come to you asking you to speak to each one individually, to show them the this and the that, to undergird them with heavenly strength, and to help them change the way they view life and view their situation. Thank you for our encounter tonight. But thank you more so, oh God, that we started off with the third of the reality, and we ended with the resurrected power of Jesus Christ to make life better. So make it better, God, we pray. And when we gather again in some future time space, let us hear the reports of what have been done and the testimonies of those who share how they shared these words with others. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 Good night.
Good night. Thank you all.
Good night. Thanks, everybody.